My dear child. There is something your heart has been trying to understand for a very long time, and tonight, heaven is finally asking you to stop running from the answer. Because the pain you carried was never proof that you were hard to love. It was proof that you kept offering your soul to people who only knew how to touch the surface of you. And deep down, you already knew that. You felt it in the silence after every conversation that left you emptier than before. You felt it in the moments you gave your all, only to wonder why it was never enough to make someone stay. You felt it every time you pretended not to care, while secretly breaking inside where nobody could see. But listen carefully now. What is coming into your life next will not resemble the love that wounded you. No, this love will arrive differently. Quietly at first. Almost disguised. And that is why you must not close your heart before the miracle recognizes your name. Because someone is about to love you in a way that will confuse every lie your past taught you to believe. They will not make you beg for reassurance. They will not disappear when your soul becomes difficult to understand. They will not punish you for feeling deeply. Instead, they will study your silence as if it were sacred scripture. And the strange part is, they have been searching for someone exactly like you too. Yes, even during the nights you believed you were forgotten. Even during the season where it felt like everybody else was chosen except you. There was a divine delay happening behind doors you could not see. A preparation. A protection. A redirection so precise, you will someday cry when you finally understand why certain people had to leave your life exactly when they did. Because had they stayed, you would have settled for almost love. And heaven refuses to let your story end with almost. That ache in your chest lately. That exhaustion you cannot explain, that feeling that something is shifting even though nothing around you has changed yet. It is not your imagination. Your spirit senses what your eyes cannot see. Something is approaching. Something emotionally life-altering. But before it arrives, there is something you must hear, something most people spend their entire lives never realizing. The reason you loved so hard, the reason you kept giving chance after chance. The reason you stayed gentle in a world that often rewarded coldness. Was never weakness. It was evidence. Evidence of the kind of love that already exists inside you. And what exists within you is now being called toward someone capable of returning it. Not perfectly, but truthfully. Do you understand how rare that is? A connection where you no longer have to shrink your feelings to avoid scaring someone away, where your loyalty is not treated like desperation. Where your softness is not mistaken for fragility. That kind of love changes a human being. It heals things therapy could not name. It quiets battles you fought alone for years. It teaches your nervous system what peace feels like after surviving emotional storms for too long. And still, part of you is afraid to believe this message. Because disappointment has trained you to expect abandonment before happiness can fully arrive. You smile. Yet secretly prepare yourself for loss. You hope, while simultaneously waiting for the moment everything falls apart. But heaven needs you to notice something very important tonight. The chapter you are entering will require a version of you that no longer identifies with heartbreak. Because the love coming toward you cannot fully enter a heart still worshipping old pain. And this is where everything begins to change. Not when another person arrives. Because until now, you were still trying to earn the kind of love that was supposed to arrive freely. And that realization is going to shake something loose inside you. Not loudly. Not all at once. But slowly, like chains falling from the soul one by one. You spent years believing love had to be chased. Proven. Protected. Maintained through exhaustion. You learned to over-explain your feelings, to apologize for your sensitivity. To carry entire relationships on your back while pretending the weight did not hurt. And somewhere along the way, you began confusing survival with connection. But heaven watched every moment you swallowed your tears just to keep peace. Every time you accepted crumbs because you feared emptiness more than disappointment. Every night you questioned your worth simply because someone failed to recognize it. And now, something sacred is happening behind the scenes. Because the person being guided toward you will not be attracted to the mask you created to survive. They are going to recognize the real you. The unguarded you. The tired you. The deeply feeling, overthinking, beautifully complicated soul you tried so hard to hide from the world. And that is exactly why this connection will terrify you at first. Not because it feels wrong. But because it feels safe. A kind of safe your heart almost forgot existed. You will catch yourself waiting for the usual games, the emotional distance, the sudden change in energy. Yet somehow, it will not come. And that absence of chaos will feel unfamiliar. Almost suspicious. Because pain has a way of teaching people to trust turbulence more than peace. But this time, you are not being led into another lesson disguised as love. You are being led toward restoration. There is a conversation written into your future that will heal something ancient inside you. One moment. One sentence. One look in your eyes from someone who truly sees you. And suddenly the loneliness you carried for years will begin unraveling in ways you cannot yet imagine. That moment already exists. It is waiting on the timeline of your life like sunrise waiting behind a mountain. And no matter how delayed it feels, what is meant for your soul is still moving toward you. Even now. Especially now. That is why your spirit has been feeling restless lately. You thought maybe you were losing motivation, maybe becoming emotionally numb, maybe growing distant from the world around you. But no. Your soul is outgrowing environments where it had to beg to be valued. There are people around you who only understood the version of you that kept settling. And the moment you begin recognizing your divine worth, certain connections will start feeling uncomfortable. Not because you became arrogant, but because you finally stopped negotiating your value just to avoid being alone. Read that again within your spirit. You were never difficult to love. You were simply surrounded by people who benefited from you doubting yourself. And once you fully awaken to this truth, everything changes. Your standards change. Your energy changes. The way you carry yourself changes. Even your silence changes. Because healed people do not chase clarity from those committed to misunderstanding them. They stop forcing doors. They stop romanticizing inconsistency. They stop calling emotional starvation patience. And you are closer to that transformation than you realize. In fact, there is someone from your past who can already feel your energy slipping beyond their reach. They may never admit it out loud. But they sense they no longer have the same access to your heart. Why? Because heaven has been teaching you a painful but necessary lesson. Love should never require you to abandon yourself. Not your peace. Not your voice. Not your emotional needs. Not the softness that makes you who you are. The next love entering your life will not ask you to become smaller in order to keep it. It will inspire you to become more yourself than ever before. And when that realization finally hits you, when you finally experience what it feels like to be chosen without confusion, you are going to look back at this season of your life with tears in your eyes. Not because it destroyed you, but because it almost convinced you that you were unworthy of the very love now trying to find you. And what happens next will feel nothing short of divine. There is a reason your heart has been so emotional lately. A reason certain memories keep resurfacing out of nowhere. A reason your spirit feels caught between exhaustion and expectation, as if part of you is grieving something while another part is quietly preparing for a miracle. You are standing between two versions of your life. And the old one is beginning to lose its hold on you. That is why things no longer satisfy you the way they used to. Why shallow conversations drain you. Why fake affection feels almost painful now. Why your soul has become so sensitive to energy that even a room can feel heavy before a single word is spoken. You are awakening. Not into perfection, but into alignment. And alignment changes everything. Because once your spirit remembers what it deserves, it becomes impossible to feel at home inside connections built on inconsistency. This next season of your life will ask you to release something you have secretly carried for years. The belief that you must suffer to be loved. That belief followed you quietly. It hid inside your overgiving. Inside your fear of disappointing people. Inside your habit of accepting less than you desired while convincing yourself you were being understanding. But heaven never designed your heart to survive on emotional uncertainty. You were created for something gentler than that. Something honest. And the person coming into your life will awaken emotions you thought had died inside you a long time ago. Not through manipulation. Not through intensity. Not through temporary excitement disguised as destiny. But through consistency. Do you realize how healing consistency becomes after chaos? To be called without wondering why they suddenly changed, to be listened to without feeling like a burden, to be chosen clearly instead of confusingly. That kind of love feels almost unreal after heartbreak. And at first, you may not know how to receive it. You may search for hidden motives. You may question their sincerity. You may even pull away the moment things start becoming emotionally real. Not because you do not want love, but because betrayal taught your nervous system that attachment is dangerous. Still, despite all the walls you built, despite the disappointments, despite every moment you nearly gave up on love entirely, your heart never became cruel. And that matters more than you know. Because many people survive pain by becoming cold. They harden. They close themselves off. They stop believing in tenderness altogether. But you, even after everything, still carried hope in secret. Tiny hope. Fragile hope. The kind that whispered, maybe someday someone will finally understand me. And heaven heard that whisper. Every single time. There is someone being prepared to love the parts of you others mishandled. Your overthinking, your depth, your emotional honesty, your need for reassurance sometimes. They will not see these things as inconveniences. They will see them as windows into your soul. And when they look at you, really look at you, you will feel something unfamiliar happen inside your chest. You will stop performing. No more pretending to be less emotional than you are. No more acting unaffected. No more shrinking your needs just to seem easy to love. Because true love never asks a soul to become smaller for acceptance. It makes them feel safe enough to unfold naturally. And yet, before this new chapter fully opens, there is one final heartbreak heaven is asking you to release. Not necessarily a person, but the version of yourself that kept waiting for closure from people who were never emotionally capable of giving it. That waiting has delayed your peace long enough. Because some endings do not arrive with explanations. Some people leave confusion behind instead of accountability. Some wounds never receive apologies. Some stories end without the justice your heart hoped for. But hear this carefully. Closure is not always receiving answers. Sometimes closure is finally seeing clearly. Seeing that you were trying to pour divine love into emotionally unavailable hands. Seeing that your loyalty was wasted on people committed to misunderstanding you. Seeing that your heartbreak was never proof you lacked value. And once that truth fully settles into your spirit, you will stop chasing what abandoned you. Completely. That is when the universe around you begins shifting in ways you cannot yet predict. Because the moment you emotionally detach from what kept hurting you, you create space for what has been trying to reach you all along. And what is trying to reach you now is closer than you think. But the moment you finally realize why they could never find you before, you may have already crossed paths with them. And that thought alone sends a strange feeling through your spirit, doesn't it? Because there is someone connected to your future who does not see you the way others did. They are not impressed by masks. They are not drawn to performances. They are not searching for perfection. They are searching for truth. And somehow, your soul carries the exact frequency their heart has been praying for. But timing, divine timing, has been protecting both of you from meeting too soon. Because if they had entered your life during the season when you were still begging to be chosen by people incapable of loving you correctly, you might not have recognized them. You would have been too busy chasing validation from those who only knew how to keep you emotionally hungry. And heaven could not allow your forever to arrive while you were still entertaining what was temporary. So instead, you were guided through silence, through endings, through distance, through unanswered questions that forced you inward. Not to punish you, but to prepare your heart for something real. That is why this season has felt so lonely at times. Because transformation often happens in isolation before it becomes visible in reality. A seed disappears underground before anyone sees the garden. And right now, your soul is underground, growing roots nobody can see yet. You thought you were falling apart. But heaven says you were shedding. Shedding old attachments. Old fears. Old identities built around survival instead of peace. Even now, there are moments where you still question yourself. Moments where old wounds whisper, what if love leaves again? What if this next person hurts me too? What if I open my heart and regret it? But listen closely. Those thoughts are echoes from battles that are ending. They are not prophecies. The future approaching you carries a different energy entirely. Slower. Steadier. Sincere. Not the kind of connection that consumes you overnight and disappears by morning. But the kind that quietly enters your life and changes your entire emotional world without warning. At first, it may seem ordinary. A conversation. A glance. A moment that feels strangely familiar. Yet beneath that simplicity, something ancient will awaken between you both. Not obsession. Recognition. The kind where your spirit feels calmer instead of more anxious. The kind where silence feels safe instead of uncomfortable. The kind where your heart stops racing from fear, and starts beating from peace. And do you know what will shock you most? How effortless it feels compared to the love you once fought so hard to keep. No emotional chess games. No disappearing acts. No constant wondering where you stand. Just honesty. Just presence. Just two souls slowly realizing they were guided toward each other through every painful detour life once forced them to endure. But there is still something heaven needs from you before this love fully arrives. Forgiveness. Not because those who hurt you deserved it, but because your future does not deserve to inherit bitterness created by your past. Unforgiveness quietly keeps people emotionally connected to the very pain they are trying to escape. And some part of your spirit already knows this. That is why certain memories still sting unexpectedly. Why certain names still shift your mood. Why certain songs still reopen old emotions you thought had healed. Your heart is asking for release. Not denial. Not suppression. Release. Because the person coming into your life deserves to meet the healed version of you, not the exhausted soul still bleeding from wounds nobody else can see. And you are healing. Even on days it feels slow. Even on nights you relapse into old sadness. Even when your progress feels invisible. Healing is still happening. In fact, there are moments lately where you have started noticing subtle changes within yourself. You no longer beg the way you used to. You no longer panic when someone pulls away. You no longer feel the same urgency to prove your worth. That is growth. Quiet growth. Sacred growth. The kind that changes your destiny without making a sound. And soon, very soon, someone is going to walk into your life and confirm why every painful lesson had to happen first. Not because suffering was your destiny, but because your heart needed to learn the difference between attention and genuine love. And once you experience that difference for yourself, there will be no returning to who you used to be. Because the next chapter of your life is not built on confusion. It is built on clarity. And the moment that clarity finally arrives, everything you thought you lost will begin making sense. One day, you are going to wake up beside a love that feels nothing like survival. And the silence between you will no longer feel heavy. It will feel safe. That is the future quietly moving toward you now, even if your present circumstances cannot fully reveal it yet. Because what heaven is preparing for you does not begin with fireworks. It begins with peace. And after everything your heart has endured, peace will feel almost unfamiliar at first. You were conditioned to associate love with uncertainty. With waiting. With emotional highs followed by devastating lows. So when real love finally arrives, part of you may not recognize it immediately. Because healthy love does not scream for attention. It does not manipulate your emotions to maintain control. It does not leave you anxious for days wondering if you matter. Real love reassures. Real love stays. Real love does not make your soul compete for basic tenderness. And there is someone coming into your life who will naturally give you what you once begged from the wrong people. Not because you forced them to, but because loving you correctly will feel natural to them. Imagine that for a moment. Being chosen without confusion. Being understood without over-explaining. Being held without feeling temporary. Your spirit has craved this kind of connection for longer than you admit out loud. Even when you pretended you no longer cared. Even when you convinced yourself you were better off alone, even when disappointment hardened certain parts of your heart. There remained a quiet ache within you. Not for attention. For home. Because that is what your soul has truly been searching for all along. Not perfection. Not fantasy. Home. A person whose presence quiets the chaos inside you. A person who does not trigger your deepest wounds, but helps you heal them. A person who sees your sensitivity not as weakness, but as proof that your heart remained alive in a world determined to numb it. And they are closer now than ever before. That is why your life has felt so emotionally transitional lately. Old cycles are collapsing. Certain relationships may already feel distant. Certain habits no longer satisfy you. Certain versions of yourself feel impossible to return to. You are outgrowing the emotional patterns that once kept you trapped. And growth often feels lonely before it feels liberating. But do not mistake this loneliness for abandonment. You are being repositioned. There are places you can no longer go. People you can no longer shrink yourself around. Conversations your spirit no longer has the energy to entertain. This is not loss. This is alignment. Because the love entering your future requires space your past has been occupying for too long. And the moment that space fully clears, everything changes. Not all at once. But in sacred little ways. Your laughter becomes lighter. Your sleep becomes softer. Your anxiety slowly loosens its grip around your chest. You stop checking your phone with fear. You stop overanalyzing every shift in energy. You stop preparing yourself for abandonment before love even has the chance to bloom. Can you imagine how beautiful that healing will feel? To no longer view love as something fragile, but as something secure enough to rest inside. That day is coming. And when it arrives, you are going to realize something that may bring tears to your eyes. None of the love you gave was wasted. Not 1 ounce of it. Every time you stayed soft despite heartbreak, every time you chose kindness after disappointment, every time you resisted becoming bitter, you were becoming the person capable of receiving the very love now destined to find you. That is why heaven never allowed your heart to fully harden. Because your story was never meant to end in loneliness. It was meant to end in transformation. And there is one final truth your soul needs to hear tonight. The reason certain people could not love you properly was because they encountered you before they encountered themselves. Broken people often mishandle pure hearts. Confused people often run from genuine connection. Emotionally unavailable people often destroy what they secretly needed most. But their inability to love you correctly was never a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their own unresolved darkness. And once you finally stop carrying responsibility for wounds you did not create, your heart will become light again. Open again. Ready again. Because somewhere, perhaps closer than you dare believe, someone is already being guided toward the sound of your soul. And when they finally arrive, you will understand why every delay in your life was necessary. Because this love, this once-in-a-lifetime kind of love, was never meant to rush. It was meant to find you exactly when your heart was finally ready to receive it, and when that moment finally comes, it will not feel like chaos crashing into your life. It will feel like peace entering quietly, then refusing to leave. No dramatic confusion. No painful guessing games. No nights spent questioning where you stand in someone's heart. Just a deep, undeniable knowing. The kind your soul has been searching for through every heartbreak that almost convinced you to give up. Because the truth is, you were never asking for too much. You were simply asking the wrong people. You asked emotionally unavailable hearts for consistency. You asked wounded souls for security. You asked temporary people to give permanent love. And when they failed, you blamed yourself. But heaven has watched the way you carried rejection like it was proof of unworthiness. The way you replayed old conversations wondering what you could have said differently. The way you tried to become easier to love by becoming less yourself. And tonight, that cycle ends. Because the next chapter of your life is not about proving your value. It is about finally recognizing it. There is a version of you beginning to emerge now. One who no longer abandons themselves for connection. One who no longer mistakes emotional intensity for destiny. One who finally understands that love should feel safe enough to rest in. That transformation is sacred. And it is already happening. You can feel it in the boundaries you are starting to set. In the silence you no longer rush to fill. In the way your spirit now pulls away from anything that disturbs your peace. You are becoming emotionally unavailable to chaos. And that is exactly why healthy love is finally able to locate you. Because love built for your soul cannot survive inside a heart still addicted to instability. Do you see the shift now? The waiting was never punishment. It was preparation. Preparation for the moment you stop accepting half-hearted affection. Preparation for the moment you realize your tenderness is not something to apologize for. Preparation for the moment your heart finally meets someone who handles it with care instead of confusion. And when that person enters your life, something unexpected will happen. You will begin grieving the old version of yourself. The one who settled. The one who begged. The one who stayed too long hoping people would someday become who they promised to be. You will look back at that version of yourself with compassion, not shame. Because you were loving with the level of awareness you had at the time. And despite everything, you survived. More than that, you remained soft. That is your miracle. Not the pain you endured, but the love you still carry after enduring it. Many people lose themselves after heartbreak. They become cynical, detached, unable to trust beauty anymore. But your spirit kept searching for light even inside the darkness. And heaven noticed. That is why your future still holds the kind of love people write poems about but secretly stop believing exists. A love that listens carefully. A love that stays gentle during difficult conversations. A love that chooses understanding over pride. A love that makes your inner child finally feel safe enough to rest. You cannot force that kind of connection. It arrives when both souls are ready to stop running from themselves. And someone is reaching that point now. Someone who has also known loss. Also known disappointment. Also prayed for a connection that felt real instead of temporary. Your paths are moving closer. Even if you cannot see it yet. Even if your current reality still feels quiet. There are things unfolding beyond your awareness that will soon make this entire season of waiting make sense. The missed opportunities. The painful endings. The delayed answers. The loneliness that almost broke you. None of it was random. Every closed door redirected you. Every heartbreak refined you. Every goodbye cleared space for something more aligned with your spirit. And one day, perhaps sooner than you think, you are going to sit beside someone who loves you naturally, and realize you spent far too long trying to convince the wrong people to see your value. That realization will hurt for a moment. But then, it will heal you. Because you will finally understand this truth deep within your soul. The right love never requires you to betray yourself in order to keep it. And once your heart fully learns that lesson, you will never again settle for anything less than the love you always deserved.